I've had a hard time calling the Tiger as an adventure motorcycle, and the bigger trouble has been it felt like Triumph was a little hard of hearing, because the updates that happened to the Tiger 800 over the last couple of years were steps in the right direction, but they weren't quite enough. But now we have the new generation Tigers. So the question is, what's changed? Looks, man, it has to work. And in this case, quite a change here, right? For starters, it looks a lot different. It looks lighter, it looks slimmer, it looks tighter. And, well, that is something that I appreciate in a motorcycle, because that hints at what it could be to ride. Although some people might complain that, well, it looks a bit smaller. But what should matter is how this motorcycle is to ride, and for that, there have been a whole host of updates and changes to this family. What's crucial always is the heart of the matter, the engine. This is still a triple, and it is carrying the same stroke as before, but it has a bigger bore, for which Triumph had to re-engineer a huge amount to get it to still be the same size. But the interesting thing is that the firing order is now different, and what that does is, yeah, of course, it changes the exhaust note, and the Triumph whistle, that's gone. This sounds a lot more meaty. It has a rumble to it now, which personally for me, it sounds more mechanical, and I like that. That smoothness, that wing is gone, but it's replaced with something that I personally enjoy a lot more. But I think the more important thing is it's got grunt. Open the throttle, now it pulls like mad, which means you can carry higher gears at lower revs, at lower speeds, and still get away with it cleanly. So it makes you work less, and that is fantastic, whether you're thinking of doing long distances or, well, you're just planning to go off-road and muck about. Helps cut the stress out significantly. Along with that, you also get a much lighter clutch, which means for everyday commutes, it will be that much easier. You also have a quick shifter up and down, so whether you're just going through the twisty bits or riding off-road, it makes you work less because of that. The problem with the Tiger off-road has been that it would feel quite front heavy, and it would make you work very hard for, just going through the rough stuff. So the changes might seem a little strange because the rake has been opened up, the trail has increased, so you'd think it might end up feeling heavier. But one very interesting bit is that the engine has actually been pushed down and a little bit forward, and actually that's why you have the split radiator to make room for that, and all of that has kind of changed the balance of the motorcycle. The chassis has also been made slimmer, so this bit might look familiar, but it's actually sitting narrower. So when you're on the motorcycle, it feels so much tighter. Remember, it looked that way? It feels that way too. Now, when it comes to suspension, the GT Pro is getting Marzokkis, which, well, aren't offering you more in terms of travel, but you're getting more adjustability now on that range. When it comes to the Rally Pro, you get Showas here, which are offering you more by way of travel and more sophistication, which is something that was missing on even the WPs that you had on the XEXs earlier on. That's not all. It's also stepped up the sophistication levels, because now you have an IMU, so which means you have cornering ABS, you have traction control with lean sensitivity. You also get Stylemas from Brembo. Now these brakes are really phenomenal on every bike we've tested, and it's no different here on the Tiger 900. Super sharp brakes, really strong bite. So yeah, it's a pretty potent package. I always thought that the XRX, which is what the GT family is now replacing, was a bit of a not really interesting. But that's changed with the GT family now, because this motorcycle actually feels like it is a sport tourer like the XR was, but at the same time can also tackle rough roads. There is, even with this Marzocchi suspension, there is a great amount of sophistication. It doesn't feel out of place when things start getting rough. And well, there's more in terms of equipment now for its intended purpose. So you get electronically adjustable suspension on this top end variant, which means you can stiffen up the rear suspension on the go depending on which mode you're using. You can adjust the preload depending on whether you have pillion, luggage, all of that. So it's packing in a lot, and in terms of its touring ability, it's really giving you more as well. For instance, heated grips, heated rider seat, heated pillion seat. All these things are packaged in either as standard or as an option depending on the variant. India, we're going to be getting the GT Pro for sure. So you're going to get a fairly loaded motorcycle straight out of the box. This windscreen, really handy bit. Again, very easy to adjust on the go. That's it. So yeah, for its touring intent, this motorcycle just as good. I was a bit worried that the changes to the chassis might have made it a bit change its nature, but it still feels great to steer, fun to ride, and with that engine update, it still pulls massively. It feels really quick. The magic though has to happen here. And on the road, when we rode the Rally Pro, it felt familiar, it felt nice. You had to put a little bit of effort into it to steer it into corners because of that larger 21-inch rim. And of course you get spoke wheels here with spokes starting at the edges, which means it's tougher. They are also tubeless tires on this, so very practical motorcycle. But it didn't have that sparkle. Well, that was until we rode it off-road, and that's where things changed. Suddenly this started to feel like a dirt bike. You drop it into corners like a motocrosser and then just gas it, ride it out through, sit on the edge of the seat. It was incredible. This is a dramatic change compared to the older Tiger because this feels welcoming. It's not a motorcycle that intimidates you.
Now honestly, if I was doing this on the old Tiger, I'd be shitting a whole lot right about now, because that was not an easy bike to ride through stuff like this. It was just so heavy. Now this bike is a different thing altogether.
It's something, even if you find the front starting to move, you don't feel nervous about it. You just ride it through. You work with either the gas or the bars, or just weigh the pegs and get through it. It's something that finally even somebody who's new to off-roading would get onto and enjoy, rather than having to endure many hours and days of getting used to it and then finding that space where you start to work with the motorcycle rather than against it. So this as a setup is beautiful. If I break it down into smaller parts, the bars that are wider give you the right kind of leverage. The suspension doesn't feel crude at all. Going over the bumps, rocks, it just sailed through it all without feeling rough or, well, just out of place. This works. Now the Rally Pro gets 6 rider modes, whereas the GT Pro gets 5. This gets rain, road, sport, off-road, rider, customizable, and off-road pro. Off-road pro basically switches off all the electronics. You don't get traction control, you don't have ABS, so it's basically take care of yourself. But with the Scorpion Rally tires that we were riding out on those sandy, rocky sections, it never felt that you needed the electronics to help you out. The motorcycle was talking enough to you to let you know what you needed to do. So, our learnings from Morocco. Triumph isn't hard of hearing. In fact, they seem to be listening very keenly. Second, the XRX's replacement, the GT Pro, now fulfills its ambitions that much better. It's not just a sport tourer, it's an adventure tourer. This is a motorcycle that somebody's buying, gets my thumbs up from, for sure. But for those of you who like to play around in the dust, who want to seek out certain wilder adventures, the Tiger 900 Rally Pro is a beautiful motorcycle. One that will turn a lot many more people into adventure seekers than the Tiger 800 ever did.